Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an Advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays! Hi, I'd like to welcome you to Raising Healthy Humans. I am your host, Courtney, a personal trainer and health coach, and the founder of FormFit, a community where I help busy moms move more. As a busy and sometimes overwhelmed mom of 3 myself, I understand that it can be difficult to find ways to live and raise healthy families. It is my goal to help provide you with the information and tactics you need to help raise healthy humans. Episode 20, Moms Feeling Overwhelmed. Today I'm speaking with Gina Fontaine, a mother of 2, a personal trainer, and the author of You Are a Supermom. Today she will be discussing a few things you can do to help with the overwhelm you may be feeling, and wants to provide you with some tips to help you reclaim your superpower and thrive as a mom.
I'm Gina Fontaine, and I have been in the fitness profession since 1996, so a long time. And I have 3 children. They are ages 18 and 13 and 11. And I tell you, I was active through all of those pregnancies. Didn't really know what I was doing because 18 years ago, there wasn't a lot of research or knowledge out there about how to exercise during pregnancy. And I can even remember hearing things like, "Oh, don't exercise. The umbilical cord will get wrapped around the neck," and those kind of things were still lingering when I had my first child in 2003. And so by the time I went through my second pregnancy, and it was kind of like my body fell apart a little bit more with each one, I decided, you know what, there's got to be a better way to treat a woman's body during pregnancy and after having a baby. And that's really when I started pursuing my own research. And I wrote a certification for fitness professionals called Power of Pregnancy. And then I started teaching that to a couple school districts here in Colorado where I live. And so I work with the teachers and the staff in these school districts that happen to be pregnant. And that just, to me, is where you can literally plant the seeds of physical activity for life by getting those mamas active during pregnancy. So it's just been very rewarding. And throughout that 25-year span of time, I've worked in gyms, I've worked in rec centers, I've actually run fitness and wellness programs for parks and recreation departments here in Colorado. So I've been around a long time, and most recently I became an author. So I wrote a book that will be very applicable to moms' lives.
Yes, and that was one question I had for you. So what brought you to writing the book, You Are a Supermom?
Yes. So funny enough, the original title of this book was I Am Not a Supermom. And I went through a very difficult time with my oldest. He very defiant behavior, had to make some very difficult decisions, sending him to juvenile detention, to jail. He's just one of those kids that is not going to follow authority. And it really brought me to my knees because at the time, 4 years ago, I got divorced, and there's never a good time to get divorced. No. And my kids, well, my oldest at the time was 13. And so he was, not only going through this family upheaval, but also teenage hormones. And it was just the perfect blend of a storm that was way beyond my control. And I started writing the book during the pandemic. So in May of 2020, my son attempted to take his life, and thank God he's still with us.
Goodness.
But the lockdown period was very, very challenging
Mhm.
mental health
Yeah.
wise. And I just had to get a grip on what was going on. So I would just voice dictate my thoughts, my feelings, the story, what had happened. And then I would come home and I started listening to it and just typing, transcribe while I'm listening. And a friend of mine looked at it and in the early drafts, and she said, this is going to help a lot of parents if you consider publishing this. And my hope is by exposing my vulnerabilities, I will be able to speak to some of those moms who are out there just silently struggling, because it's shameful when your kids are not doing the things that you expect and desire for their
Mhm.
life. My son dropped out of high school. He got a GED. I'm like a former straight A student and always did everything. So it was just baffling to me. How do I parent this child? And what it really came down to was a learning that if I take care of myself and keep myself calm instead of freaking out at every single thing, everything around me starts to stabilize.
Mhm.
And it seems kind of magical or woo woo that, okay, all you have to do, you're telling me, Gina, all I have to do is get calm and my kids will obey me. Not necessarily. I think what I'm saying is that when you come from a calm platform, when there are disruptions, it's not like a panic, go right to fight or flight. And I still do.
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm learning to stabilize the platform instead of always, you always get what you expect or what filter or lens you're looking through.
Mhm.
And so I realized at a certain point I was always looking for disaster, and that is no way to live your life.
No.
So when you you start to look for gratitude, I truly think gratitude is the way out of crisis, and
Mhm.
that's the writing process really helped me become grateful that I went through the tough stuff and I didn't run away from it or do harmful or damaging things to myself that would have had long-term detrimental effects on my health and well-being. So
Right.
yeah.
So, as a super mom, what are you finding that you're doing to help you be able to move through this, like you said, with not stressing over everything, just moving through and accepting, basically?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I've learned to ask questions.
Mhm.
And when something happens and there's maybe there's vaping, that was a big thing, always vaping inside, and I used to just go through his room and sweep out everything and throw them away. Well, guess what? They would just reappear the next day, and he perceived that as disrespect.
Mhm.
And once I could start asking him questions like, what benefit are you receiving from this behavior? And he would tell me it would calm me down. And I can only hope that, being a health and wellness professional, I've planted seeds in him that one day on his own, he's going to wake up and say, gosh, I can't run without coughing. I need to cut this out. But as we know, with behavior change, it's never, people don't do it for reasons outside themselves. It has to start from within. And in terms of the super mom, I use that term and with quotes around it, because the traditional super mom is what I'm encouraging moms to move away from. That mom who's always giving her time away to everybody else and not taking care of her own needs,
Mhm.
and letting it be okay to put yourself first, and filling that cup up so that you have more to give others. And that, to me, when you can live in your fullness and express and really be okay with your whole experience, the beautiful, the bad, the ugly, the the challenges and just be okay with it. That to me is what makes us super moms in
Mhm.
our own unique way. Because if there was ever a test, it was 2020 and pandemic lockdown at home with your kids, a lot of us trying to work while doing it and keep our sanity while we're not having our social outlets. And so in my belief, what we just went through, we're all super moms, and I
Yes.
celebrate all moms, and nothing, dads. I know you were in there too. It's just my peer group, the women out there. I honor and bless all of you for
Mhm.
the amazing things that you did
Mhm.
during this time.
Yes, definitely a difficult year for everybody. Couple of
Yeah.
years, difficult couple of years.
Hmm.
And one thing you had mentioned was the modeling with your son. And I think that's huge is stop putting it on your child or trying to feel like you have to control your child. Focus on yourself and modeling it. And that should then turn to help them. And hopefully they'll pick it up at some point. So you have, go
Yeah,
ahead,
I just
sorry.
kids are like, they have little radars, and you could just get up on the wrong side of the bed, and I would swear sometimes, even when my kids were toddlers, they'd sense that mom was a little bit off, and then they'd start throwing their tantrums. So and it's all about energy regulation, frequency, the words we use, the gestures we make, they emit frequencies, and we kind of push that out all around us. And it's really all about staying in your heart and keeping this space wide open and full of love. And it's a tall order,
Mhm.
especially when everything around you is kind of imploding and in chaos.
Right. Yeah. Now, in your book, you have 5 ways to reclaim your superpower and thrive. Do you notice, is there one that resonates with you the most? Or do you notice something where there's one that they just really struggle with? And maybe they're different. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
I think it is different for everybody. And basically, the 5 ways are 5 myths that I believe that we need to debunk and move in a different direction.
Okay.
So the one I think, myth number 2 is moms are master multitaskers.
Hmm.
And while we might be like, we can multitask like nobody's business, is it necessarily doing good things for us?
Mhm.
And would it be better to, have one task, focus on it? And yeah, you get interruptions when there's kids around, but also making it clear, hey, mom's focusing on this for the next 15 minutes. Please don't, setting those boundaries.
Mhm.
Being a multitasker has so many inherent rewards, right? Like you you feel like you get more done. I can remember when I had young kids, and I'd have one in a baby carrier, and I'd be cooking dinner. I bet that was really safe, having grease coming back, off the stove. And I'd have another kid, playing underneath my feet, and and maybe I was listening to something, on my iPod at the time.
Mhm.
And it's so much information
Mhm.
overload, and the brain, we know from research, the brain can only focus on one meaningful task at a time. And if you want to test that theory, there's a really interesting thing you can do where you write 2 lines, and on one you write, I am a master multitasker, and then you go down and write 1, 2, 3, all the way to 20. Time yourself. Then go over to the other side, 2 lines, and write I, and then go down to the other line, 1. A, down to the other
Oh,
line, 2.
wow.
And you are making your brain spell out something. You go between spelling and counting. And give it a try if you're listening. It's so interesting. When I did it, it was 22 seconds for the first task when I was focusing, and it took me 43 seconds to
Oh,
do the
wow.
second. So it really told me, okay, while it feels productive
Mhm.
to multitask, it's really not. And long term, it has, extremely detrimental effects on our nervous system. To, it just kind of puts us in that constant fight or flight type feeling when we're multitasking.
Yes.
And I still struggle with it. I will say that, I wrote a book and I said, let's debunk this myth. And I still have to remind myself, shut off your notifications. I might be on Facebook and then an email pops in. Don't leave it. You don't have to look at it. Because, that going back and forth between tasks, it just sort of waters down the experience of what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah. And do you have recommendations of how we can work through some of those multitasking?
Yes. And I think my big breakthrough came when I was writing, and how I did it was I gave myself a number, and I think I just saw it in an online writing group. They were encouraged to write 2,000 words a day. And the first time I did it, I was like, wow, that's a lot. And it just flowed. And I shared my goal with my kids. I tell, okay, Mom's sitting down. It takes me about 90 minutes to write these words. And so I want you to help hold me accountable. And that went on and on until, finally the book was complete. And I chose to make that a priority. And that's what I talk about it in my book, having 3 big tasks a day. That it might be, I'm going to take care of things for back to school, and then I'm going to make these phone calls, and then I'm going to write a blog post for my website, and blocking it out and being okay. Like if these 3 things get done, it's been a hugely productive day. I think I used to make task lists that would have like 20 things on them. And it's just, it feels really good as you're crossing them off. There's a lot of built-in self-gratification. But at the end of the day, I would just feel like, whoa, I did way too much. So yeah, I think for moms, we perpetually feel like we're not enough, right? Like, oh, I lay in bed at night. Oh, I didn't get this done. Oh, I didn't do that. And when you pare it down to just 3 big tasks, it's such an accomplishment at the end of the day that, hey, I didn't go and just, spill out all over the place. And it's all about energy management.
Yeah. And you feel like you've accomplished something. I noticed for myself, I'm the one that writes 20 different things because I'm a list maker. I love making lists. And then I have to mark through everything that I haven't done and write it on the next day. And that can be very discouraging at times.
Yeah.
To see all that you didn't get accomplished, even though in my calendar, like you had mentioned, the 3 tasks, mine does have like your top 3 things you want to get done and then everything else. But mentally, it's that, feeling of, but I didn't get everything else done. So to be able to just focus on 3 is a great idea. Don't even write the others.
Yeah. And it, like, everything else is bonus, is the way I see it, in those terms.
And you even grouped them, which, as I'm thinking of myself, like 2 things I have are in regards to making phone calls, but you grouped them like make phone calls. So that I like that as well, because then you can feel like we're already doing this. So let's continue on this path. Let's make all the phone calls, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, all those things, get them all done before moving on to the next task.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like, I don't know, in my world, all the newsletters for school come on Friday. And I would inevitably find myself, I'd be working on something, and then I had, kids in 3 different schools, and then I'd be like, oh, I better read this newsletter. And it's okay to put that off and say, you know what, that's a Sunday night read, or, just put it in a basket and say, I'll get to that later.
Yeah. Now, with your book, when we think about all of us, all moms, we deal with this constant feeling that we have to do so much for everyone else. How can we become empowered to feel like we don't have to do everything for everyone, being that people pleaser. And, we've got to do it all. There's so many things, so many tasks for us as moms that we have to do for so many other people. How can we feel empowered to maybe not do it all?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that it's so programmed. At least I know I'm a perfectionist. I know many other, I'll just say a recovering perfectionist, because I'm much more willing to let the house get messy than I ever was before. And my big epiphany came when I became a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
Overnight, it was like, oh, you know what? I don't have time to take care of all the tasks that I used to, and letting it be okay that I don't mop the floor every week. It maybe is every 2 or 3 weeks, and it's okay to run a broom over it. And to be okay with just accomplishing those three big tasks that you set in front of yourself. It's I also think that stress is a contributor to our perception. And so when we're under constant stress, and here's an interesting fact. I'm going to ask a question. Do you know how long, Courtney, it takes for women to process stress hormones? Like, we have a triggering event, there's a reaction. Maybe we scream or we throw our hands up in the air and yell. Do you know how long it takes for the adrenaline and cortisol to process out of the body?
So I'm going to say that I did have someone recently on in regards to the
Okay.
vagus nerve, and I'm not positive these are the same, but I believe, if I can recollect, she said 20 minutes. Is that correct
Wow.
or no?
24 hours is what I learned.
Oh, okay.
And that's like, you can have stress and not react to it, right?
Right.
So you can have somebody cut you off in traffic and just take a deep breath and say, okay, they're in a hurry, they got to get somewhere. Okay, I'm okay, and not have a reaction to it. And I used to be a ticking time bomb. Just, I would go off and I'd spout off at my kids multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, I'd feel terrible because I wasn't calm, I wasn't centered, I wasn't the full expression of who I am as a happy, playful, joyful mom. I was too focused on, oh, there's so much to do. Because when you're a single parent, it's all on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like, oh, okay, I have to take a step back and maybe take a bath in the middle of the afternoon. I mean, there was a period of time where I made that a daily ritual, just to kind of clear away the feeling of, I got to do more. And the less I do, I find, the more productive I am. It's very interesting. It took me a long time to really grasp that one, but there's a lot of truth to that.
Are there things that we can do to really hone in? I know you said make the list, but I'm trying to think, like, if in that everyday life, when something comes in and it does create that reaction from us, do you have any ideas or things that we might be able to do to help kind of calm ourselves quickly and move on to the next thing?
Yes. I mean, deep breathing, that's, you talked about the vagus nerve, and when we take a deep belly breath, it stimulates the vagus nerve and it sends a signal to the brain like, okay, you're not in a threatening situation. You can calm down. Now, I know from personal experience, sometimes you're so revved up that you can't even get in a big breath.
Mm-hmm.
And in those cases, getting up and doing big movements, like maybe just swinging your arms around your body, or lifting your arms up and down. You have about a 10-second window when you have your stressor and the release of the hormones. So in that 10 seconds, what can you do? Can you smile? Smiling is a way to trick your body, even when you're angry. And you can put a smile on your face and say, now, how can I handle this situation with calm, clarity, and ease?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of getting angry, screaming. And I lived in that world for so long. It just felt like, I don't know how you get through the day without screaming at your kids. And then I would feel terrible at night feeling like, gosh, I am not being a good mom. And in essence, I was never filling myself up, perceiving I was as a fitness professional, teaching classes and saying, hey, I'm really active. I'm teaching 2 or 3 classes a day and seeing clients. But it's different when you're doing it for other people than you're. And I think my big awakening with that came really just a few months ago. I had knee surgery and tore my ACL, and I was out for many weeks. And it was like the first time that I put my own expertise and used it on my own body. And I've been loving it.
Yeah.
It's really been great to receive from me.
When you said that, it made
Mm-hmm.
me think of these moms who are just going, for ourselves, we're fitness professionals, so we are feeding into them during that time. But there are many moms where I feel like they come to class, they don't want to be there. They're doing it to check off that box. Like, I've done it. I've done my workout for today. Okay, let's move on. Next box, next box. How can we help them feel like it's something that they might want to enjoy doing to fill them up, to help fill them up?
Yes, and
Okay.
I actually talk about that in my book about the shoulding on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when exercise is a should,
Mm-hmm.
instead of I get to exercise, I get to move my body. I steer away from the word workout because I feel it implies like more work. Who wants to do more work? Like, I want my exercise time to be playful and fun. And so finding your joy, and there's so many options out there these days for women to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And presence is huge. And along with the big tasks, I mean, maybe exercise is one of your big tasks because you're prioritizing it right now. What is the outcome you desire from that? Do you desire to just check it off the list? Because that's not a feeling. So what's the feeling? Okay, the outcome is I'm seeking joy.
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to create joy? I might get outside. I might put on my favorite playlist of music that I love and listen to it while I'm moving my body, or listen to a great podcast and get, some inspiration time. And because that is something when you're exercising, that's not multitasking to listen to music. Now, when I do see people that are like listening to music, reading a book, and watching TV, I question, like, is the body able to process and receive when you have all those distractions going on? We have sort of an addiction to busyness, of keeping lots of balls in the air. And it goes back to that master multitasking. Look at me, I can do so much, I can juggle. And it feeds into our ego of, look at what I accomplished. I did 20 things today. And we have to step away from that as moms for our health. And if there ever was a time on this planet when health was our greatest wealth, it is right now. Like, we have got to, for our children's sake, take good care of ourselves as mothers, because they're kids for a short time, and you can either be a stressed out monster mom, or you can be a calm and more empowered mom. And and you know what? In the process of change, there's a lot of like, yeah, I have days where I blow up and say, oh, I can't believe, but it's not every day. It's maybe every couple weeks or longer. So, I encourage moms to be gentle with themselves and know that change rarely is something where you just snap your fingers and say, okay, today I'm a new person and I'm going to be mindful and present. I'm going to try the best that I can to be present with each task as it comes up today. And when I'm mindful, I can say, oh wow, my breathing is shallow. What's going on here? And stop myself and say, oh yeah, because here I go again. I'm doing too much. And step outside, and it's kind of like pushing the refresh button and saying, okay, it's not one thing I say, and it's a quote in my book, nothing's worth losing my peace of mind for. And, operating from peace is power.
Yeah. I noticed that you also an aside here. Um, have is it 1 minute workouts that you promote
So
or 1 minute movement?
yeah, 1 minute wellness solutions.
Okay.
And it may not be even movement. It could be like, I love having flowers around the house. It might just be, I'm going to, stare at the bouquet, maybe rearrange the flowers, make it an arrangement I like. And it brings me joy. I love flowers. It might be, I'm going to put some essential oils or an incense stick on in the living room, and I'm just going to sit for 1 minute and just breathe that in. Or if I'm at work and I'm sitting in my office chair, every 30 minutes, I'm going to get up and do 1 minute of squats, and just letting it be, movement is something that's just integrated and flows into your day, because it's unrealistic as moms with so much responsibility to drive over to the gym, get all sweaty, come back home, change your clothes, take a shower. Like, if you can just kind of sprinkle activity throughout the day, it all counts.
Mhm.
And I really truly think it's not so much how hard you work. We've programmed, unfortunately, this idea that no pain, no gain, and that's so 1970s and 80s. I mean, we need to get past that, and really, start by saying, I'm so happy and grateful that I get to move my body today. I get to, not I have to go to the gym. I don't want to do it. And then it just becomes another stressor, another thing in your life. And the truth is, you're not going to stick with it if it's something that doesn't bring you joy.
Right. Well, and making it small movements throughout the day, make it more practical, like you said, and then also allowing for you to actually be able to get it done and stick with it longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I liked how you said even just wellness, 1 minute wellness, because as you were saying, rearranging the flowers and doing the essential oils, it made me think that's just bringing yourself back into present. And I think as moms, we're constantly, you talk about the anxiety is thinking about the future and depression is thinking about the past. And we are stuck, I feel, that many of us as moms are stuck in one or the other. And really, just doing that 1 minute of wellness will bring us back to more of a present state.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, the opposite of multitasking, what we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about before, is presence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, stay present. And also, I had a mom chime in and said that she felt like mindfulness was a privilege. And I can totally see that. Like, if you have young kids and it's just like, I don't want to hear about mindfulness because you don't know my life. There's kids scurrying underneath me. And my suggestion was, so be present to your tendency to multitask, and be okay with it. Like, have empathy for yourself and know that this is a challenging season of motherhood. And can you just be in love with the way that you're doing things presently today, and have an awareness that things could shift when I'm ready, when I see that it's useful and valuable to do that.
Right.
And hopefully it won't be some type of health crisis that becomes the motivator. That it comes long before that,
Mm-hmm.
where you can start to see, again, when I operate from a platform of peace, my list of things to do whittles down, and then what I do is with potency and power, and the small tasks or the big tasks that I choose to do have a lot more power in the world because you're present.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's the way she's looking at it.
Mm.
It's how she's looking at it, because I immediately thought, why not just sit down with your children and, like even just say, Shh, let's be quiet for just 1 minute and see. We used to always do the silent game. We'd play the silent game, like when we were at our wits' end, when they were little, when we could do this and they thought it was fun. And
Right.
we would just say, oh, silent game. And it was always like when we were in the car and everybody was going
Right.
crazy. And we would
Yes.
do
And
that. And it was like just a minute of peace where they just gave us a minute of peace because everybody was trying to be who could be silent the longest. So I think it's a lot of just thinking about how you think about that mindfulness.
absolutely. And shifting your mindset is
Mm-hmm.
one of my pillars, and it's synonymous with myth number 3 is how many times a day do you hear being a mom is tough? We may have even said it
Mm-hmm.
already in our interview, that when you tell yourself it's tough, you will find evidence to support that life is tough. When life is easy, and I tell a story about I love to run the stairs at Red Rocks Amphitheater, where it's a great outdoor venue for concerts, and there's 220 stairs, from bottom to top.
Okay.
And there was one day where I just, it's killer. You're running up, and and there's a lot of people that exercise there. And I just said, you know what, today this is easy. I'm going to experiment with this is easy. And every time I would feel my body clench up, I would just, oh, that's right, this is easy. I am going to take a deep breath. And you know what? I cut like several seconds off my time,
Okay.
even doing that by saying, I'm not going to grind through this. I'm going to be gentle with myself. And I feel like women, wow, we're so hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have a very strong inner critic, and I hear that voice, and it's, you have to remind yourself, like, those are just thoughts. They're not real. It's not who you are. And that's still something that I work with every day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, there's a lot going on right now, but I'm going to choose to see the bright light. I'm going to choose to stay grateful instead of, oh, it's so tough. Or for a long time, it was, people would always say, the struggle is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was such a big phrase for so long. And it's like, well, does it have to be a
Mm-hmm.
struggle? Or can you, kind of choose to step out of the fishing line that's got you all tied up and say, oh, it was just because I was all tangled up that everything felt tough. Now that I'm separating myself from that and shifting my perspective, everything looks easier now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there anything that we can do as moms supporting other moms to help with this, feeling empowered and feeling we're all in this together, supporting one another?
Right. It really does take a village. They say it takes a village to raise your kids. And my family is 1,000 miles away from me, and I've never had the luxury of having siblings and grandparents, help with child care. And I think asking for help in that, for me, when I became a single mom and was going through the whole divorce process and was a fledgling business owner, didn't have any income, I had to step out of my ego and ask for help. And it was incredible when I did ask for help, just the help, even from strangers that came in, because a friend shared with their network that, this mom is going through a hard time. Like, we need to support each other to help ease that load, and to be vulnerable. And you don't have to share what's going on, but even just saying, I am having a really tough time. And I love the group concept. I have a Facebook group called Moms Thrive Tribe, and I really encourage women to feel like this is a safe place where you can just, get on and say, I am really struggling with being a parent today. I don't like this at all. And parenting can suck. Like, I hate to say it, but there are days when as a child, I had these, glorious dreams of being a mommy and how wonderful it would be. And then the reality struck, and I was like, wow, okay. And even more so, I need to keep my vibration up, so that these tough tantrum bouts, or kid running away and not knowing where they are for several days, so that I can get through these stressful challenges with and it's never easy to go through things like that, but there's, the hard way and the harder way. And so I'm going to choose to make it easier than make it harder.
Yeah. Well, and also changing our expectations of ourselves. Because as you were saying that, I was thinking of, just these visions that we have when we think about having children. And then once they're here, just one being crafts or something. And then as you're doing the craft with them or whatever, the mess and the chaos that, and it's like, this isn't the way I imagined it to be. So just trying to let go of all of that.
Right. And somebody, I don't know who said it to me, but it was like, you don't necessarily get the kids that you want, but you do get the children that you need, like their personalities. I mean, my oldest pushed me so far out of my comfort zone and really stretched my my patience muscle. And so we're just there to kind of guide, support, have their back, and celebrate their uniqueness. Because in my ideal world, my son would have gone to college, and that didn't happen. But now he's living on his own in an apartment, and that just happened a few days ago, and he's doing it, and I celebrate his success. I vote his victory, and that's, I think, the most helpful thing that I can do. And letting our kids fall, like, for instance, he got his debit card in the mail, didn't sign it, and I saw it laying on the table at his apartment. Hey, I think you really need to sign that. And yeah, you're always nagging at me. And I know that when I nag, he's just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
So that may be a hard lesson he has to learn, that, if he loses his card and somebody picks it up, that's a tough lesson. Yeah. So yeah, I wish I had let my kids fall more when they were toddlers, because that was my mother. So I'm the youngest of 10 children. That's a really interesting fun fact. Oh. And I can remember her telling me, you need to just let your kids fall and not shock them with your, panic, or just let them be with it, let it go. And I wish that I had done that more when they were younger, because the mistakes they make when they get older are so much bigger and have much more severe consequences.
Well, and failure can lead to greater success for them as well.
Absolutely.
To be able to, if they never get to fail, they never get to learn from their mistakes. So
yes, it's so true. It's so true. And we can be there to guide and support and say, oh, I'm sorry, that must be so disappointing. But stick with it. You'll get it next time. And instead of going in and fixing it for them. And that to me has been like taking those steps away and saying, oh, I'm not going to intervene here. I'm going to let my son sign the lease, set up utilities, do all the adult things. And guess what? He did.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and going back to the empowering, it empowers you, to not feel like you're burdened with the mistakes he's making as well.
Right. So. Yeah. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to be accountable to ourselves. And, one big learning I've had is no one can make me mad. Like when you say, oh, my kids are driving me crazy, there's something inside of you that's unsettled. Nobody's making you crazy, because they're, I have such respect for ER doctors. Like they're in constant, almost constant calamity type situations. And you really just have to, keep that calm center and not get, swept away on the merry-go-round where you never seem to get off.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you want to make sure that we discuss today? Is there anything else?
With moms, and I know you're on the same page, Courtney, with, fitness and taking care of your bodies, is just to remind women, like, it doesn't have to be a hard workout, especially after you are postpartum and recovering. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a workout. You've got to go slow for a period of time to go fast. And so take the time. And I one of my phrases I use is slowing down is the new fitness,
Mm.
because when we consciously slow down, we don't have to carry so much baggage with us. We just, have that easier mindset of getting through the day. And it's really amazing how you really don't have to work that hard to be in good shape. It's more like, what's the intent do you put behind it?
Yeah. Yes. And then as we get older, it actually is better for us to maybe not push so hard
Mm-hmm.
with exercise and movement. And I'm with you on the movement aspect, just trying to find ways to make it more a part of your everyday life in little chunks throughout the day rather than feeling like you have to do. Even though I love exercise and working
Mm-hmm.
out and 45-minute sessions, but that's not always practical. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've written this book.
Mm-hmm.
When does it come out?
So the launch day is September 21st, 2021.
Okay.
And I am having an in-person live event in Denver, Colorado, where I live. And then I'll also be going on Facebook Live in the morning on my personal page, and encouraging people that want to read the book to purchase it from Amazon. And I'm very excited. It's, and also a little bit nervous because I'm putting a story out there that's it's I bear it all. It's kind of like standing naked in front of a crowd and saying, "Okay, here's me, take it or leave it." But I hope it will, like I said, help women who are struggling with tough stuff like
Mm-hmm.
teenage drug use, runaways, suicide attempts, depression, mental health concerns. I've dealt with all of it, and you can get through it, and you can actually thrive through it.
And can this book be found? Where can we find this book?
So it will be available on Amazon starting
Okay.
September 21st, also Barnes and Nobles.
Okay.
And you can also go to my personal website at ginafontaine.com, and you can order directly from my website as
Okay.
well.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have a Facebook group. Can you
Mhm.
repeat what that is? And I'll make sure to put it all in the show notes and everything.
Sure. Yeah, so the group is called Moms Thrive Tribe,
Okay.
and we really use the five pillars from my book and focusing on different aspects of well-being, from mindfulness to setting healthy boundaries, to and have a discussion about it and share experience, hope, and strength with one another. And what I love is that I have women that are grandmas,
Mm-hmm.
and I have women that have newborns. And the grandmas love to, kind of give advice and help. And it's just a nice, nurturing, supportive community. I loved a couple weeks ago, a mom posted that her toddler was just off the rails that day. And she was just like, I don't know what to do. And I loved that, like, 6 or 7 of the older women in the group just were right there, like encouraging her and offering advice and books. And I sure wish I had that.
Yeah.
Facebook really wasn't a thing
No.
when I had my first 2 children. So it's so important to stay connected,
Mm-hmm.
especially in these times.
Yep. Community and connection is everything
Mm-hmm.
for for all of us, but especially for us moms. And
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah. And I think we really have to get out of
Mm-hmm.
comparing, when we're in groups, we can tend to be like, oh, she's got it so together and I'll never be, but to just embrace yourself with the same loving attention that you do to your screaming, crying infant.
Mm-hmm.
That can you give that same amount of love to yourself when you're at your wit's end? Can you say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to be gentle with myself today and meet myself with love instead of shaming and guilting myself?
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time out of the day to listen to our podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Gina about how you can start to thrive as a mom. Make sure to head to her Moms Thrive Tribe Facebook group, as she will be hosting a launch party on September 21st from 8 to 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can also find her at her website, ginafontaine.com, and I will make sure to have all the links in our show notes. I also wanted to let you know that if you are a mom who's wanting to begin to start making healthier choices, like we discussed today, but you're not sure where to start or don't feel like you have the time, I currently am offering you the opportunity to do a 5-day challenge that is free for you to get started on making small changes each day. It's going to provide you with a quick 5-minute movement or workout routine, along with a 5-day meal plan with family-friendly meals you will enjoy. Just head to formfitnaples.com/fitin5, that is fitin5, to sign up. Go out and enjoy your day while practicing small, healthy choices that will make lasting changes.